Hi, everyone. I am Yvette Lloyd, host of Life Heard podcast. Today, we are joined by Dr. Deborah Heiser, an applied developmental psychologist, TED speaker, author, and founder of the Mentor Project. She's dedicated her life to helping others find purpose through mentorship and understanding the beauty of aging. Dr. Heiser brings powerful insight on what it truly means to lead, give back, and grow intentions. I'm excited to have this amazing conversation with her, and she is so inspiring with her work. And you can learn how to live your life with more meaningful ways in early ages and later stages of life. Hi, Deborah. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on your show. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited too. I love conversations like this because it brings so much clarity, healing, comfort. It just brings so much to people because sometimes we find ourselves stuck.
hmm That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you. So I want to know, like, as far as your journey is so inspiring. So from founding the Mentor Project to your deep research of on aging, what sparked your passion for studying human development and aging?
It started with my grandma. I used to visit her down in Florida, and I would go as often as I could from New York down to Florida to visit with her. And when I would go down, she was like the fun grandma. She had like cute clothes, and I wouldn't even have to pack anything because I would just wear what she had. And one time I went down to visit her, and she wasn't like herself. She was kind of disheveled and grouchy, and she was always the fun grandma. So I asked someone at her um, independent living facility what was wrong. And they said, "Don't worry, we're going to fix her." And I thought, "Fix her? What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, she's taking a medication for her COPD, and it's causing her to feel depressed. We're going to take her off that med, and we're going to try a new one, and we're going to see how she is, but she should be fine in a couple of months when you come back." And so I came back, and she was better. She was back to herself. And I said to myself, I want to be a grandma fixer after that. So I had never looked at aging, never thought about aging, but that was a prompt for me to say, wow, I want to make sure that everybody gets to be the happy people that they want to be when they're older. And so that set it all into motion.
Wow, that is amazing. And it's so crazy because before we started, I was telling you about my aunt, but my like all of my aunts and stuff, they're the elders now. And it's like we have to take care of them and everything. But, they keep so much bottled in them over the years, and we don't know as children or even as adults. But when they get older, a lot starts to come out as far as their personality, and I've been noticing that with like my aunts and stuff too. And that angriness that sparks out of nowhere, and I understand and I appreciate you even just touching base with that, because a lot of people really need to know that and really need to learn how to live their life when it comes to things like that.
You know, it was interesting to me because I took it personally when I went down to see her and she wasn't in a good mood and I couldn't cheer her up. And I really thought, wow, this is terrible. Like, she isn't the person that I know. Like, why is she acting like this? Did I do something, or why can't I make her happy? And I think that the one thing I now can reflect on that and say is, wow, if we notice someone is not themselves, it's great to go find out what might be causing that. It was a complete personality shift for her. And being able to recognize that was something that was so important for me, because I don't think that I ever questioned that there could ever even be anything wrong. And especially emotionally, that there could be something wrong or off. So noticing those that we care about, any kind of change in their physical or personality, physical appearance or personality is so important because we could make a change in their life for the better.
Yes, that is true. So your journey as far as everything, what led you to create a lot, like get more in debt with it? I know with your grandmother and everything, but how was the process of like as far as you launching it and
Oh,
bringing it to awareness with individuals?
so, I mean, that was the beginning of it. I said, okay, I want to be a grandma fixer. But that meant I had to go back to school and change my major, which took me
Mm.
forever to get my college degree because I
Oh,
switched it from business to psychology. But then I graduated and I went into work at a psychiatric hospital in research and looking at depression. And that was how I then moved forward. And I said, I think I want to do this. So then I went on to graduate school and continued that. I then went into research looking at everything no one wants to have or get when they get older, thinking that that was what aging was, that I was in there looking at all of the things that we were expecting, which at the time in the 90s, that was when Alzheimer's disease really started to become a big fear for people. So I was looking at Alzheimer's disease, dementia, frailty, end of life issues. This is when palliative care was something that people thought that people were going to kill you if you said, I want to get palliative care. So
yeah.
all of this stuff made me a big, downer at cocktail parties. Like nobody wanted to talk to me if they found
Wow.
out that I was an aging specialist because I was looking at everything that could go wrong, but we should
Mm.
never think that that's what it is because we really have only amazing things to look forward to. I just didn't know that at the time. It took going to a dinner party where I told people what I did, and somebody across from me said, well, so what are you doing? Putting a Band-Aid on everything, that could go wrong in our lives? What do we have to look forward to? And I
Right.
didn't have an answer for him. And I had to sort of reflect. It was kind of my next aha moment where I had to say, I want to find out what we have to look forward to. Is this really it? I'm just going to chase all of these things and put it off just a little longer. And that's when I started to look at midlife and the things that we have to look forward to. And within that is mentorship and giving back. And by midlife, we're sort of we have an emotional journey that we follow that only goes up. So we might have some physical blips along our way, and that may be going downward. But
Mm.
even no matter with all of that, our emotions go up. And so I was like, wow, that's cool. What's the, jumping point for that? And the jumping point for that is midlife, a stage called generativity, where we want to give back to others. It's how we
Mm.
feel relevant and meaningful, makes our footprint, we leave a legacy, makes us more connected with others. And then I was like, all right, now I have to look at this. This is important. And I decided to look at mentorship next.
Mm. Wow. So, like when it comes to, say, for instance, Alzheimer's, what are some of the steps people should get when they get to that point? Because sometimes people in our family or friends, you notice the signs before they actually notice it. What is some steps that you find that people should do to be able to help that person to be able to face reality with it, find maybe a neurologist or something or somebody that could actually help them with the process to avoid the stages to go so fast?
Well, first of all, I'd say you should be going to the doctor regularly. Even just like with my grandmother, her doctors found out before we did. I only went down to
Oh,
visit, and they had already known that she was depressed and they were going to change her meds. But
okay.
if you go to the doctor regularly, they check you every year. When I go to the doctor, they're checking my eyesight, my hearing, my gait, how I walk. They're checking my memory. They're checking all sorts of things every year. And they have those as benchmarkers. So they will be able to pick that up. But you have to go to the doctor regularly and not just when you feel sick. You
Mm,
have to go get that wellness visit that
yeah.
takes a couple of hours and you're like, oh my goodness, you have to fast and get the blood drawn, do all that. That's super important because if you do that, the doctor is going to pick up on that. That's how they pick up on eyesight changes and hearing. And memory is another one of those things, because those around people often don't pick up on it because they're living with them. So
Yeah.
those little subtle things that maybe, just become normal part of the day are not going to seem normal on the annual visit to a doctor.
Mm. So, how can we cultivate the purpose and contribution in our later years, especially for women who often feel invisible as they age?
So many of us, men and women, feel invisible as we age because we don't understand the power we hold.
Mhm.
And that is really the important thing. If you look at when I started to look at mentorship, the people that are often the biggest carriers of culture, religion, values, traditions, they're grandmas, they're moms, they're the women in the households. If you think of things that have been passed down, religion is centuries of being passed down. All the traditions that we hold are passed down. We don't remember mentorship in the workplace. We remember the things that are valuable and meaningful more often, the cultural things. So an example for that is I was sitting down at Thanksgiving dinner, and I don't even think about it anymore, but I use the same recipe that is in my grandmother's handwriting on little index cards. And I make the same meal every single year, and we all eat it. And I even make the stuff nobody really likes, just
Mhm.
because I make the whole thing. It's tradition, like the whole atmosphere, the smells, the food, the table, everything. Well, one year my uncle came to visit, and he was so moved because he said, "Oh, we're having my mom's Thanksgiving dinner." And I had been I had taken it on, and I'm passing it down and taking those same index cards, and he said it's the exact same meal from beginning to end. And he was so moved by that because he was eating his wife's dinner for Thanksgiving. Um, but these little tiny things that we take for granted are the things that make it so that 200 years from now, we're still doing the same things. And
Yeah.
those values that we hold dear, it's not just the food, but the values that we have in our household, that's our power. So
Yeah.
if we can say, I know that my power will last centuries, that can you get any more powerful than that? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So many people fear the aging, but the work that you do, it challenges that. So what would you say as far as most misunderstood aspects of midlife and older adulthood?
Most people think midlife is a time of crisis. You're like, oh my gosh, I better go get like a sports car and have an affair and get divorced and all these things. Like, that's what you hear about. And that's not at all what it is. So, when we look at our age trajectory, midlife is the first point that we actually get to think of ourselves. It's a reflection point. Prior to that, we're figuring out who we are. If we think of ourselves as a jar, we're filling up our jar with information and skills and talents and everything that's been passed down to us. We're putting it all in our jar. By the time we hit 40 and 50, especially 50 is like the a real time that it really kicks in, is when we're like, okay, my jar is full. Now what?
Mm,
Do I want to check more boxes? Like, do I want to just keep stuffing stuff in here? And that's when we say, no, I don't really want to continue with that. I want to see, do I matter in the world? It's kind of where we're checking our power, so to speak. We're saying, do I matter? And what have I done in this world? And has it been impactful? And when we
yeah.
do that, we say, okay, I think I want to either volunteer, mentor, or get involved in philanthropy. Those are the three kinds of generative things that we do. And if you look around, you'll start to see people in midlife are doing these things. We just naturally do it. It's like walking and talking. And that's the first component that lets us feel fulfilled. Because when you see that you're making an impact on somebody, whether it's your grandchild or it is somebody from the younger generation, or it's something that you believe in or have a passion and you start a company, you start a business, you do podcasting, like, these are the kinds of things that leave lasting impact. It's the first spark of fulfillment and feeling like my footprint just got a little deeper. And that is what allows us to continue that upward emotional trajectory. So we should be expecting to feel more and more fulfilled every year. If you were to think of yourself at birth as a seed and you become like an apple tree, you're not fully developed until the very end when the apples are ready to fall from the tree. And that's when you're sort of dropping your wisdom and feeling fulfilled.
Yeah. So what makes a great mentor versus a good one? Because you speak on mentorship so much and it is so important. So how can people actually figure out to choose the correct person for them to prepare them for this?
So mentorship, I like to say that, mentorship, the term is so loosely used,
It
and
is.
that term was sort of hijacked by corporate America so that it's seen as a work-related thing. That, go find a mentor to get to the next level. And that mentor, nobody can, it's a nameless, faceless individual. Nobody can name who that person is. So it's frustrating for people because people will say, I don't know how to find a mentor. And mentors are like, I don't know how to find a mentee. It's really taken a lot of the natural, organic aspects of it out of the equation. So if you're looking for, you can only really say that you're going to look for a mentor because there's only a good mentor. It's like a friend. Not everybody who passes in front of you becomes your friend. And why is that? You only choose the ones that you like, right? The ones that you feel that that you can connect with. And that's the same with mentorship. There's no such thing as a toxic mentor. That's not a mentor. It's like saying I have a toxic best friend. No, that's not a friend. That's where we need to start thinking of mentorship as I don't have a burden of thinking I better be inspiring and entertaining to my mentor, my mentee. They're going to want what I'm giving and they'll be inspired by that.
Mm.
So, the way that we can look at mentorship is that it's 5 components. One is that you need to be generative. Somebody has to say, I want to give back. You're a podcaster. You're clearly generative. You're giving back. Everyone who's listening is your mentee. You are sort of a modern mentor to people. And so that's the first component. You have to have that innate desire to give back in a way. The next is that you need to have somebody who wants it. So if you were podcasting and you never turned it on and it never made it to anybody, you're not a mentor. But if you have people listening and who, connect and come back, then you're mentoring them. The next thing is we need to do it for intrinsically motivated reasons. And what I mean by that is if you're getting paid, you're not a mentor. So if somebody says you better mentor, it's part of your job, you're going to get, a performance evaluation and you need to be engaged in this. No, that feels like, a burden. That doesn't feel like a mentorship. If somebody said you must be friends with Sally down the street, that's going to make you feel like, oh, I got to go hang out with Sally.
Yeah.
So the real way that I like to look at it is if I said to you, hey, would you like to go volunteer time at a soup kitchen? You might say, yeah, sure. It makes me feel good. I'd like to do that. And you're not going to get paid. But if you're on your way to that soup kitchen and I said to you, turn left and go volunteer your time at Starbucks instead, that is a whole different feel. You're still giving out food and beverage to people, but one feels great and one feels like you're getting exploited. If you're being paid and you're being called a mentor, it has an exploitative feeling to it. The next thing is a meaningful connection. Just like a friend, you have to like the person. If you're like, ugh, I'm meeting with my mentor, I don't really like the person, I feel obligated to go, that's not mentorship. You also need to trust the person. If you said to me, hey, I want to show you what I know, and you thought I'm going to run away with your ideas and go use them for myself as a mentee, we're not in a mentoring relationship. Likewise, if I said, I'm not going to tell her what my vulnerabilities are because she'll go tell everybody, or she's not going to promote me, then, this is not a mentoring relationship. And it also has to have a goal. Like you have a goal with your podcasting to get the word out on what you want, empowering women, letting people know that there are paths forward. So without any one of those things, you don't have mentorship. So there's no good mentor or bad mentor. There's just mentor or no mentor, just like friend or not friend.
Yeah. And it's so much when it comes to mentorship because you got to have that connection too when it comes to it. And
Yeah.
some people, they need to know when they don't have that connection, it's okay to separate themselves
Yeah.
and continue to find someone that matches them, that's relatable to them, and they feel as though it's helping them too.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. And we should never say, I want a mentor. We should be saying, I want a million mentors, as many mentors as we can have. If you think about everybody who's helped you in your life or given you advice, it's lots of people. It's not just one. So don't limit yourself.
Yes. So you've built a global nonprofit with mentors who give their time freely. How do you aspire such a high caliber experts to your participate?
It's funny because it was organic in how it happened. I happened to be, when I decided to really look into mentorship, talking to top mentors. I was talking to actually everybody. I was talking from like four-star generals to grandmas. And they were all saying the same thing. Like they cried when they talked about the impact that they felt. Like the grandma said, I wanted to raise my grandson to have the values that I had, that if he went out anywhere in public, I could be proud of him. And like she was so moved by that because he turned out to be this amazing man. And the four-star general started to talk about not military. He was talking about his own grandson too. It was really wild. But the fact that people got choked up talking about how they felt like they made a difference. So as I was doing that, the interesting thing was I started to talk to some people who did some world-changing things. Like one of them is the guy who is the father of the network firewall. That's how you and I are communicating right now. It's secure. We can do our banking and all this stuff online because of the work that he did. And he was like, I'm getting ready to retire and I'm not going to have any ability to connect with people to mentor because I'm going to be moving to a farm. And it's not like I can go to a park and say, hey, kid, you want a mentor? He was feeling really like he was going to be irrelevant and useless. Those were the words that he used, like useless and not helpful. And that really made him anxious. So we decided to start to just get him out into schools. And then a couple of other people said, oh, I'll do that too. That sounds great. And so we were just a few of us, like 7 people. And then we thought it'll never take off. But within 6 months, 60 people asked to join as mentors. Then it went to 80. Then by the end of the year, 100 people asked to mentor. And it was because they didn't have access to mentees. They were out there like, I would love to give back, but I'm not finding people in my area, or they're not just, nobody's going to knock on your door and say, hi, I heard you have this expertise. Can you mentor me? So when we got this group together, we were able to make impact very quickly, because it was finally a place where people could connect, and we are mentor focused.
Wow.
So they tell their expertise, and then the mentees can say, oh, that's somebody I'd like to meet.
That is amazing. So how can we encourage more integrational collaboration to solve today's social and professional challenges?
What we really need to do is connect with others. And that is as simple as looking to your left or looking to your right and saying, is this somebody I can help? Do they need my help in some way? Can I mentor them? Or is this someone who can mentor me? Most of us don't think of things that way. We think we have to go look way outside of our circle. And a lot of times our inner circle is filled with people who can help us. If it's not, we can start to look beyond that. We can go to networking groups, community centers, other places that, even online forums, podcasts, reaching out to people. So if somebody were listening to this podcast and they said, I really want to reach out to you, they can email you and say, hey, I learned this from you. Can you give me some advice or guidance? It's that way, where we have always felt that if we ask somebody for any kind of guidance, that we're burdening them. And it's actually just the opposite. People are clamoring for someone to ask them for their guidance.
Yeah, they are. So, as someone who's worked in research and nonprofit leadership, how do you stay aligned with your purpose through it all?
You know, um, I think that I believe in ourselves. My mission and the belief system that I have is us and succeeding and getting happy. So I've never had to deviate from that mission. And sometimes that mission grows as I learn more things about it, that there are more people who like to mentor laterally than hierarchically. So it has always gone back to, how do we connect and get those things happening so we can lead happier lives? So the mission has always remained the same. It just has grown in how I'm able to connect with that mission. That's really it. And
Wow.
that's how most of us do it, I think.
Yeah, especially when you have a passion for it. Like
Mhm.
it's different when you are passionate for it or you feel like it's something you have to do. But
Yeah.
when you're passionate, it's just like you just put your all into it and you just do it and it flows so well.
Yes. And, it's like that soup kitchen versus Starbucks. If you're going in and you're extrinsically motivated, it'll never really connect. It'll be harder
Yes.
to connect with that mission. But a lot of times we can find something that we really feel passionate about in what we're doing. And if we can look within ourselves and say, what is it that I can really find that I can connect with here? We can add some passion to something that maybe we were feeling extrinsically motivated by, and give that a different kind of feel for ourselves.
Yeah. You know what's so cool about it, even with you doing this, it's like the world has shifted in a sense too. It's like a lot of people want to even work with more people that are
Yeah.
passionate and realistic and honest and being them authentic selves. So it's like times have changed over the years to a point. Us people as passionate individuals, we are in a winning phase now, right now, because people's lives have changed and they just want to live for their purpose at this moment.
Yes. You know, I mean, just think about it. If you were to look a few decades back, to do, there was no such thing as podcasting. You got
No.
to watch the news and it was somebody else saying what, was out there in some kind of way. You get to be the master of what you put out into the world. No one owns your words, no one owns your thoughts, your feelings, or anything. This is a new free time for all of us to be able to express ourselves. And that's really what all of this purpose stuff is about, is being able to express it. You couldn't do, if you weren't able to do podcasting before, you'd have to find a different way to get that purpose and passion out. And we didn't have tech to help support us to do
Yeah.
that. Nowadays, our phone is like a computer that we can do all kinds of things. We can even get on social media and make our voices heard. We can engage in communities online. We can blog. Writing was only for people who, had a certain pedigree and were able to find a publisher for their work, or, they didn't have free blogs like Substack like there are now. There's so many ways that we can, it doesn't matter what your passion is. Look on all of the social media. There's recipes that, like how there people can follow that. And I can go down that rabbit hole left and right.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that before.
No.
We had none of that. So no matter what your niche is, it's out there and you can make your voice heard.
Yes, definitely. Because I graduated high school in 2001, and that was like really the era on when technology started to come about more, cell phones and stuff like that. Because when I was in high school, we had like little pagers and stuff, and we
Yeah.
could talk through those or three ways. So, like, with everyone willing and able to express themselves, develop information from people, and hear different people's insights and everything, that's another form of mentorship, and it can help them expand their mindset to be able to do things. And it's so crazy because my elder family members, they have cell phones now, and they like, how do you work this thing? But at the same time, they are loving YouTube and positive things, and they're learning so much. But and it's so cool to see it be so new to them, but they love it. Honestly, they really do. It just brings a different light to their life.
Yeah, I love the fact that if there's anything I ever want to learn or know more about, or the things that I enjoy, like there's all kinds of things that were really difficult to get. And I talked about like recipes and things like that, but we have, you can look up anything, whether it's DIY or home improvement, or like men and women can find a million different things that they can, watch and learn from and feel connected in a different way. It's not as tight as getting together personally with people, but you can still feel a level of connection with someone. You can get that from podcasting, from blogs, from YouTube, all of that. It's really a nice time to, be able to experience all of this.
Yes. So, with that being said, what advice would you give to someone approaching retirement but is unsure of what's next for them?
So I like to talk to people about retirement and say, what is your identity? Because most people look at their identity as their job. And they'll say, oh, I was a teacher. I was a CEO, or I was whatever they were, doctor or a nurse, or whatever they were. They identify with that like it's an identity card. And so retirement can be difficult if somebody doesn't have other things that they feel connected with. So it can be a difficulty if you leave something that was your whole world and you're now saying, uh-oh, now what? So I tell people, what else is it that you like? What gets you going? What is it that makes you feel like you're a part of the world? And I've seen so many amazing things from people. Like there was one woman who was a teacher, and she was like, I have nothing to do. I have nothing to look forward to. This is terrible. I'm going to hate retiring. This is going to be awful.
Yeah.
And I happened to go to her house, and I looked at the walls, and I was like, these are beautiful paintings that you have. And she said, oh, I made them. And I was like, really? I was like, well, have you ever thought of doing anything with that? And she's like, no, I haven't. It turned out she was able to go, she moved down to Florida. She was able to go down and open up a studio. And she was able to see her identity as a painter, as an artist at that point. And some of us have all of these things, like maybe people love to cook. Maybe they have another passion that they just were taking for granted and they did it all the time. Gardening. There was one person who was an artist and he loved football games and he always wanted to be down on the field. And that's a hard thing to do. That's
Yeah.
not easy, but he
No.
was a crafty guy. So he said, I'm going to drive the bus for college and for the college sports team. And then he got to be down on the field all the time for the games. And that was a clever way to move and transition from being an artist to somebody who got to be down on the field of all the games of that team. So there are lots of different ways that we can look at retirement as an opportunity for us to express those passions that maybe we didn't get to put at the front, but were maybe lagging behind, or that we never got to express at all because we didn't have the bandwidth. So I tell people, before you retire, look at what those are, because there's not a single solitary person who has literally no passion, and then figure out a way that you can express that. And there's always a way to do it.
Yes, it definitely is. It's just been them being creative. I think that is so cool, especially with a woman with a painting. Like, we have so many hidden talents. It's just we never brought it to life. Or even sometimes people shoot us down from even living our dreams, and then we find ourselves living their dreams as well
Yeah.
throughout the years. And it's like it created us to, put a lot behind us instead of bringing it in front of us to actually come to a realization like this is really what I want to do.
Yes, it's finally retirement is the you time.
Yes.
It really starts in midlife that it becomes you time. And so when you're able to say, this is my time to focus on me, that's when, a lot of people are a little uncomfortable with that at first. They'll be like, no, 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 I'm used to being the giver, not the
Yeah,
taker. But
that's
we
me.
have to see ourselves not as takers when we're, fueling ourselves, but as I'm going to be able to be a giver when I know what my passion is and I can give it back to whom I want to give it to and how I want to give it to them. So that's the other thing that we can start to look at.
Yes, it is. I have to look like that myself.
We all do.
So you wrote the mentorship edge. What is the one powerful takeaway from your book that could shift how we see our careers and legacy?
I would say that the real big thing that should be the takeaway is every single person is a mentor. We're all built to mentor. There's no one who isn't a mentor. And we should be seeking as many mentors and mentees as we possibly can. Our jobs really is to our jobs are to get our information out to others. Um, Otherwise, we're burning down libraries left and right. We are our most precious natural resource. And
Yeah.
if we are not giving back, and if we're not taking from others who have wisdom, then what are we doing? It doesn't work in a silo. So the book really is there to show what mentoring is, what it isn't, and how from the Bible on to any kind of corporate job, the mentorship is there. It's in our lives all around us. And if we engage in it, it gives us a much bigger, you know, sort of space in the world, and much more impact.
Yes. So what is one of the one lessons that's taking you years to learn, but it changed everything for you?
The biggest lesson I had to learn was that we have the expectation that we should be happier as we get older, that looking forward to the future is not looking at decline, depression, mental and cognitive, issues. It is really looking at feeling empowered, finding your power and giving that power out to others. That was huge to me. I felt like aging was powerlessness. And I found out, in fact, it's full of the most power we could ever have or want.
Yes, that is so true. And I feel like sometimes people take on other people's issues and things that they're going through in their lives, and they take it on into theirs instead of actually living their life and creating boundaries to block off others so that they are able to do the things that they want to do. And we're so into saving other people and being there for them and everything. And it's like at some point in our lives, we have to be there for ourselves so that we
Mhm.
can be able to do the things that we want to do and be happy. And sometimes it takes away from us removing people from our lives too to create
Mhm.
happiness as well.
Yes, there is the old addition by subtraction that is true in some cases. You bring up some good points. We surround ourselves with people, and we have to realize that if we are chasing after saving someone else, and that means that we are going to not have a life for ourselves or any legacy or any impact, that's not helping either person. Sometimes it's really important to say, I can be with someone in terms of, I can say, I will guide, I will support. Your journey is your journey. My journey is my journey, and I'll be there for you, but I'm not going to give up my life in a way. So I mean, obviously that is, very difficult when you're dealing with family and
Yeah.
close friends and things like that. And those things are easier said than done. But there are people who are also around that can be supports like mental health counselors, psychologists, who can help to support through that because it's very difficult to see things in your own life. It's easier for someone else to be able to say, here's a tweak, here's a new way of looking at it, here's a new way to help. And that is how you can also retain some of your own power, is by getting the support from someone else so you're not draining yourself.
Yeah, that is so needed. You don't want to empty your cup at all.
No, no, it's a disservice to others, because if you give away, emptying your cup is giving away your power, your knowledge, your wisdom, it's everything. And if you can't pass that on, you haven't just not helped yourself, but you haven't helped the other person who could have gotten that from you.
Yes. So, how do you personally define success at this stage in your life?
Success for me is feeling like I'm making impact in the area that I want to. Um, and right now, I want to be making impact in the field of mentorship so that more and more people can get connected. Every time I feel like I'm able to talk about mentorship that might lead to somebody making a connection, either, with the person next to them or wherever, I feel like I'm a success. And so that's how I'm defining it now. I don't know how I'll define it in 10 years from now, but right now that's where I am.
That is amazing. I'm actually proud of you because sometimes people
Oh,
can't really answer that question, and we drown ourselves in our work so much, and we do so many things for other people, and like you're helping so many people, but we forget to give ourselves credit, and you
I
actually just
agree with
gave
you.
yourself credit.
It took me a long time to get to that point to be able to do that. But thank you for noticing that. That
You're
didn't come out of a box. Like, that came out with work.
Yes. So, what message or encouragement do you want to leave with our listeners, especially the men and women that's navigating midlife, career transition, or even the uncertainty about their value?
Look at yourself and realize that you are the most precious natural resource that exists, and you don't want to waste it. So, go out and share your wisdom with others, whether that's your values, your culture, your traditions, your religion, your work, your whatever it is, share it. Give that out to others. Plant those seeds all over that it's going to carry yourself on. And also remember that there's wisdom waiting for you to take in as well. So look at everybody as an opportunity, for you to gain and continue to grow yourself. So that's really all I'll say to for every man and woman out there, is to make sure that your power is given the way that you want it to be given, and that you never give it away in a way that makes your cup empty.
Yes. So, how can people get in contact with you and be able to work with you and just follow the different things that you have going on?
Sure. You can check out mentorproject.org if you are a student. All of our mentorship is free to students. So check that out. There's a little box that says become a mentee. You can click it. And you can also reach me. I write for Psychology Today. You just look up Deborah Heiser, Psychology Today. You can find me on my website, deborahheiser.com. I'm on LinkedIn. And, check out the Mentorship Edge. It's in all formats, even audiobook, because I hope that you will see that you are a mentor and that you have a lot to give.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for even giving such amazing advice for my listeners. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. Keep mentoring with your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Life Her Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and also follow Life Her Podcast on all major platforms to listen on audio.